Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live. We are doing our fixed ops retention strategies segment this week with my good friends Joseph Clementi, Robert Sebestyen, and Mike Vogel. So welcome back, gentlemen. It's been a minute, as they say.
Hey, Paul.
So today we are talking about fixing the core retention problem. Now, is there a retention problem for real? Who comes up with this? I heard a rumor by some company that did a study that said 7 in 10 customers defect from the dealership world and go to the aftermarket. Say it isn't so, man. So what are your thoughts on that? Do we have a retention problem?
Absolutely. No question about it. And it's been ignored for too long.
Well, it's so blatant that, you hear people on online forums, you hear them on the radio when there are shows about this, and you hear people say things like, I cannot wait until my warranty's up so that I don't have to go to that dealer. No, I don't want to hear that ever again about a dealer that we're associated with, or any dealer for that matter. Why would anyone say that? Of course, this person actually assumed or was told that they have to service at the dealer, but most people find out quick that they don't have to maintain their warranty, so they defect a lot quicker. But this person was, that I heard last, under the impression that she had to service at the dealer to maintain her warranty.
And to your point, Robert, even though each dealer obviously is individual, obviously there's dealer groups as well, but we're kind of all lumped together. When people talk, they talk about independents, aftermarket stores, and they talk about dealerships. So every time we have a dealership in our neighborhood or the same manufacturer, we're all lumped together as we're all bad. And it's the same thing really where I get a little bit annoyed is with advisors, with service advisors, when one service advisor is doing a poor job with customers, typically all the other advisors will be suffering as well, because that customer is not coming back, and many of them will be talking badly about the experience that they had. So choosing to ignore it, laugh it off, whatever the case might be, is such a negative thing to do, and it's never going to get better if that's the path that you choose.
And if you just Google in your hometown how many independent aftermarket businesses are, it's alarming. And they're doubling in size for one reason, right? The perception is that the automotive dealer no longer sees them as a value, right? They see them as a dollar sign. And until that changes, until that culture shock comes about, like Mike said, that they will leave, and that regression spreads much further, right? Because people have much broader bandwidth to reach more people through social media. In the past, it was friends and neighbors and relatives, right? Now it's everybody on their social media, whether they know them or not. So that small misstep, that small dysfunction and process could actually be costing you more than what you can actually see. And that's really important to anyone that's operating in the automotive world.
Yeah, many options out there. And, you talked about numbers, money. And really, when we started discussing what we were going to talk about tonight, Paul, the two things that hit the top of my list are, first of all, the people side, no question. Are we doing the right job hiring the right people to take care of the customer? And number two, are we giving them the proper training to ensure that customer experience the proper processes so that experience is the best that it can be? And the second thing is the numbers. And really, we keep shooting ourselves in the foot because we see declining repair order counts in many dealerships, not all, but many dealerships are going backwards. And so everybody's looking for that quick fix. So all you hear on the street is talking about let's get our effective labor rate higher, let's get our hours per hour higher. And next thing you know, let's put the advisors on a pay plan where they're paid off of effective labor rate and hours per hour. How are you going to possibly focus on a great customer experience if the numbers are driving your pay? I mean, it's asinine to put it bluntly. It's just asinine. It just makes no sense. We have to focus on the customer experience, and it really starts with the employee experience. Not only are you making the right hires, but are we putting together a team and treating them the way they should be treated, treating them fairly, paying them fairly, and making their job as good as it possibly can? Are we giving them enough support to do their jobs properly? All those things. If we're not taking care of the employee first, then how do we expect to get the customer experience up? We can't threaten them to a great customer experience. We can't threaten them with making less money or taking bonuses away. We can't threaten them with suspending them or firing them. That's not going to fix the core problem.
You know, we provide at the store level, we provide an opportunity for our employees, okay? And we're really doing them a disservice when we're not training them. And I'll give you a couple of for instances. You know, the experience dictates everything beyond what we even think. So I'll tell you a short story. I had a long relationship with a dealer, did many car deals with them between myself, my family, my immediate friends, and God only knows how many people I touched online that I never even met before. Okay. I would always blow them up online. Anytime I went there, when my daughter made the trip in from out of state, daughters, plural, to pick up their cars, I always blow them up online. This last time I needed a car, they weren't interested in doing the right thing by a good regular customer. So I found a dealer that was. And this dealer bent over backwards to do everything that honored every promise before, during, and after the sale. So naturally, I start blowing them up. My previous salesperson, on the other hand, he unfriends me on Facebook. I didn't understand why. I went into the store because they moved into a new building, and I went to see my buddy. He's a service manager. He says, "Oh, did you go see your sales guy up front?" I said, "Hey, he's not too happy with me lately. He unfriended me on Facebook. I'm not quite sure why, but he did." So I go up to see him in front, and I say, "Hey, why'd you unfriend me?" I said, "It's the car business. You can't take it personal. You guys weren't willing to do what the other dealer did. The other dealer really wanted my business. And, I have no hard feelings with you." And he said to me, "Well, I did take it personal." I said, "Why would you take it personal?" He says, "I took it personal when the phone started to ring." I said, "What the hell are you talking about?" He said, "You know how you always blew us up when you come in and when you came in for service and your friends came in?" I said, "Yeah, so?" He said, "Well, everybody knew that you bought and serviced your cars here, and all your friends did too. So when you bought from the other dealer and you started blowing them up, those same people were calling the store to find out what we did to piss you off that you went to another dealership." Okay, so that's a real result, right? That's not just today's word of mouth is online. And then you fast forward into a shop and you talk to, we're all understaffed. Okay, so we're all doing way more things than we have time for. So guess what ends up suffering? Training. So I hear a guy complain. He says, the advisors are no good. So what do you mean? Well, they're no good because, somebody comes in for an oil change, they're not upselling them. So I said, so what does training look like? I don't really have time for training. Okay, so let's say I'm a customer and I come in. What's the process? There really isn't a process. So we do walkarounds. Oh, we take pictures. I said, "You're taking pictures. That shows the customer that You're taking pictures because you think maybe they're a dirtbag and they're going to try to get over on you on some damage that was on the car. Are you showing them the tires? Are you explaining why you're checking the wipers? Any of that? Well, no, I don't have time for that. Here we go, right? So to Mike's point, you have to hire, what is that saying? Hire for attitude and train for skill, right? You are responsible for setting your people up for success. So if you want to provide a good living for them, teach them how to effectively do their job. Not just to sell stuff and make money, but so they're servicing the customer better.
It goes way beyond that as well. Like Coach Mike said, it's human capital, right? And instead of staying focused on human capital, which delivers the byproduct, the results, when stores focus only on the results, if they're results driven, results oriented only, the byproduct is the front end of the process is suffering. Those individuals that need development, that need reinforcement, that need process development, process refinement, those things fail because the only objective is delivering on the bottom line.
Right.
Right. And, you know, it's one of the things that I wanted to talk about on this call because it's something that we speak much about, right? It is the environment. If you're talking about human capital, the investment you're making to hire the right individual, to deliver the right product, the right experience, it begins with understanding why you're doing what you do. And when you have process-driven focus, which is on the byproduct, which is how much money are we making? If I can't see more of you three, then I might as well make as much money as I can on Mike. And well, if you two don't come back, then I got to try even harder next time to make even more money on Mike. And all that does is create this divisiveness with the individual who's there to try and deliver a complete experience, when their only focus is how much can I make off of Mike? Because I already cost myself Robert. I already cost myself Paul. Because what was my priority was I need to sell Robert something. He's here today, and I need to sell Robert something.
Guess what you're going to sell me, Joe? You're going to sell me whatever you're spiffed on.
Yes.
Because whatever we spiff is what sells, and that's a disaster. Now, I'm not against spiffs. However, they have to be monitored because if we're selling a bunch of, let's say, alignments, we sell a lot of alignments just to increase the bottom line. And I really don't care how expensive your alignment is. If you're doing a really thorough job, a great job for the customer, and it was needed, the reading was really accurate, that alignment is out, let's sell all the alignment that need to be sold. But watch out. When an outside vendor, for example, spiffs your employees to sell chemical services, you'll see that those sales will go up. As a service manager, I never supported that. I wanted that spiff to come to me. I want to make sure that we offer complete care. We sell everything that needs to be sold. And by the way, the aftermarket does a terrible job at this. Right now, there's an auto shop in my neighborhood, very close to us. When on our Facebook group in my neighborhood, somebody that just moved into town asked, where should I go for auto repair? 100% of the recommendations are to this facility. The guy's awesome. He's sincere, but he's sincerely wrong. He does not have an MPI process. So this is in the aftermarket. I am so mad at him. And they even told me, a service advisor told me, well, we don't think that it's a good thing to sell people stuff. We just do what they ask for. And I was like, that's a disaster. You're underserving your customers. And in one case, my neighbor went on a trip about 4.5 hours away. On the way back from the trip, their front wheels started shaking. The steering wheel started shaking. And this guy just serviced the car about a month earlier. They had an alternator replaced. The front tires were worn out. But this guy and his wife, they don't know anything about cars. He never lays on his car. And they never told him about the tires. So now I actually used the guy, but now I'm going to train them. I'm taking an MPI sheet and I said, every time I come in, I want you to do the MPI. I want you to charge me for it. and I want you to do whatever is on that MPI sheet up to $2,000. Don't even call me. Just get it done. I want to have what I call the Ultimate Trust Club. I want to be a member of the Ultimate Trust Club, the key tosser customer, right? That's the customer I am. And that's the goal of a good retention program when we train our staff, to have more and more key tossers because they can trust us 100%. And again, the aftermarket is doing a terrible job, but there's this perception that they're actually doing a good job and they're saving customers money, when in fact customers are inconvenienced quite often, as they don't really check all the stuff, the basic stuff, brakes, tires, things like that, fluids. They just do the minimum in many, many cases. So the aftermarket actually is underserving the customers. We're missing opportunity at the same time. But instead of spiffing particular services that we want to sell a lot of to make a lot of money, we should focus on complete care. But hey, is there a secret sauce that the service advisor can learn, that can adapt to their service advising style so that customers basically become key tossers? I believe there's a secret sauce.
I think what we need to talk about is when I go in to do some training, I like to talk to advisors about what's in it for me, because a lot of times we don't focus on that, and I give the reality of the dealership business, where we're talking about 30% retention after the warranty is expired, whatever the number is, whether it's 30, 25. But I tell the advisors, okay, you wrote up 20 customers today. You handled 20 customers today. Are you okay giving away 14 of those customers and never seeing them again and only keeping 6? And I'm like, well, no. Okay. So what did you do today with those 20 customers to make their experience as good as it possibly can be so that they'll want to come back? But again, it circles back to, if they're going to be grinded by the dealer principal, the general manager, the service manager about their effective labor rate and their hours per RO, those numbers will fall in place. But we have to start doing things the right way from the very beginning. Your sales will be there. You've heard me talk on this show in the past. I don't consider myself a good salesperson, but customers bought from me all the time. Second part of my equation was, when I was a service advisor or even a service manager, I have no technical background. I don't change my own oil. I don't rotate my own tires. I don't even change my own air filter. Okay, none of that. But I learned from my technicians in the shop how things work, what they mean. And when I had to sell something to a customer who already trusted me, I sounded like a person that knew what they were talking about. And that's all that was really important. Right. I wasn't trying to connive them out of anything. I wasn't trying to lie to them. I was telling them the honest to God truth, but I was telling it to them as a trusted advisor versus a salesperson. And so I think until you get to a point in your shop where you can get your advisor team up to that level, you're going to continue to chase the numbers first. And that's going to continue the path of customers exiting the dealership world. And it doesn't need to be like that.
Now, a couple of points. The aftermarket, and I started in the aftermarket, and we've got Jamie Alexander on the show here, who spent many years in the aftermarket. She got recruited by the dealer world. Okay. What a lot of customers feel, and this is documented, is that whenever they go into the dealership, they get clubbed over the head. So they end up leaving. There's no trust factor there. Okay. But make no mistake about it, there are a lot of sharp people in the aftermarket, and they've adapted to the technology. Okay. Jamie speaks to, in the aftermarket shops are doing well with the digital MPI. Okay. These people, what they have over the dealership body, Oreo, get out of the screen. What they have over the dealership body is that they are able to foster better relationships because they don't have the same barriers that you have at a dealership. Okay. In a dealership, there's the wall, there's what happens in the shop, and there's outside the shop. In the aftermarket, a sharp manager can bring that customer right to their car and show them and explain to them educate them as exactly what the condition is, what their options are, and build more trust, right? Where the dealership can make up for that is in their video MPIs. When you look at the data from video MPI to no video MPI, the per dollar ROs go way up. It's not because you're whacking them with stuff. You're educating them and you're showing them what they need and why.
But you know what, Paul, to your point, the barriers have to come down.
Yeah.
The transparency has to be there. You have to build the processes around what the customer wants. Too many service departments build the processes around what they want, what they feel they want to do there. Ask your customers. I'm not saying you can do everything a customer's gonna request, obviously, but focus on what the customers want. The other thing is, like when it comes to service department processes, one of the things I learned when I was with Toyota dealerships through a program called Toyota Signature that I was a pilot dealer for was get your team involved in building the processes. They're the ones that are on the front line. They're there day in and day out dealing with every single customer. Who better to know what will work and what will not work? Just because the service manager doesn't doesn't mean that you need to build every single process. You can approve everything, but why not get the team involved and get the buy-in? Because the reality is if they buy in and they develop it, then you can go back to them later on and say, why aren't you doing it?
Right.
Where is the consistency? You guys and ladies said this was the best process for us to do, but yet you're not doing it. Why? Things like that will make a difference. We don't have to be set in stone on every single thing we do. We need to be able to be adaptable.
I want to go back to something Robert began with, was the alignment, right? Why do we get an alignment? To keep our vehicle straight, right? To make sure that our vehicle stays straight. What happens when you let go of the wheel if a vehicle is completely out of alignment, right? It's going to go one way or the other depending on the alignment, and it's going to cause you off course. So why not take a step back and realign your team? Begin an alignment strategy on how do we make sure that everyone on the team is in alignment with our goals, with our purpose, with our focus. How do we make sure, to Mike's point, if we're going to build a process around our clients or our customer base, the people coming in, how do we ensure that those processes are consistent? How do we make sure that everyone is aligned with the belief that if we do a digital multi-point inspection, the value add is presenting everything all the time without prejudice, so that the client can make an informed decision. I'm like Mike, I'm not technically minded either, but you can rely on the skill sets that your technicians have and the knowledge that they have to educate you. So I feel extremely comfortable presenting anything, anytime, once I'm educated. And you do that with consistency, without prejudice, every time, and let the client make an informed decision. Guess what? It becomes easier and easier. But it's got to start with an alignment strategy. How do we get everybody on the same page? The old adage, rowing the boat at the same cadence, the same level of skill. You can't do that when one team is out of alignment and veering off course with frequency, while another part of the team, maybe your technicians, are in alignment and they're going straight down the road, but your advisors are off course. They're out of alignment. Maybe your management team is out of alignment. We always talk about training. Training is imperative. I believe you train a dog, but you develop people. And the more time you spend with people, the more engagement you give them, the more alignment they have. Everything else seems to come in together, right? Like Mike said, if we don't focus on, the metrics, we focus on the people, the metrics come. And I think that's probably the biggest opportunity we have in the automotive world, is that alignment, that human capital alignment is the best way to analyze that.
You know what I don't see? I agree that develop the team, have them develop the processes. But one thing I never see is involving the customer in that process building, right? You can have focus groups. You can have smaller focus groups to talk to your customers to find out, hey, how's your experience been? What can we do better? What do you think we need to change? And you can develop together with the customer who has certain levels of expectations, which are up here these days, with your team who's on the front line to develop better processes so that everybody wins, right? There's a book called The 5 Love Languages, okay? It's a book it's a relationship book, but guess what? It's also a business book. We think in relationships that our partners, our spouses, that they want certain things, and we do that for those people. Come to find out when you read this book that it's not always exactly what we think it is. We're doing for them what we want for ourselves, which may not necessarily be their love language. So I'm all for having the team develop the processes. I want to pull some customers into it to see how we can further tweak it, because at the end of the day, it's really for their benefit. And I can't tell you I've ever seen that in any store.
Yeah, I mean, surveys tell you a great deal, right? They tell you about what isn't working. And in most cases, the number one result of poor surveys is, generally speaking, down to communication. Somewhere along the line, the communication has failed, whether that's a process communication or an individual communication. But generally, that's the overwhelming issue, is a failure in communication.
You know, part of what I call the secret sauce is, right, that whatever you just said, Paul, that you've got to train your advisors on personality types, love languages. So I'm not talking about really deep knowledge of the 4 main personality types, but you got to understand that different people want different things and they want to be treated in a different way. So adapt to the personality type of the person. If you start telling stories to a person who is very direct, and they really don't want to hear your stories, they want you to take care of them. So if you understand personality types, whichever personality profiling system you use, then you'll know that with that person, you need to go right to the point. Now, every now and then, I've made it my goal with a person like that to make them smile, to make them laugh about something, because they're so direct, they're so much about business that you know that that's what you got to do. But at the same time, I said, let me see if I can find something that I can create rapport about. So we've got to build rapport. And I'll tell you, maybe some of you know, I just got back from Europe for about 30 days. We were in Europe. And out of about 60 restaurants that we had dined in, one stands out. And some of you guys have seen the picture on LinkedIn with Benjamin, the ultimate professional as a waiter. And he had a great attitude. Your attitude precedes you. So service advisors, we think as managers that the cost is too high to make sure to protect our service advisors' attitude. But there is no cost high enough that we should not be willing to pay. Whatever it takes, staff adequately, and watch the mindset. We've got to be careful with the mindset of the service advisors, because our attitudes precede us. When the service advisor walks out on the drive, if the attitude is great, he sets himself up for success. If the attitude is bad, but can we really afford to have a service advisor greet a customer with a bad attitude at all?
Nope.
And I'm not talking about the customer's bad attitude. If the customer has a bad attitude, we greet him anyways. But we cannot afford to have a service advisor go out. So it has to be constant coaching, constant pep rallies. It has to be clarity of vision of how we serve these customers. I've seen in an independent shop where 20 people were standing in line, yet the service advisor, it's a tire store, so it's not a big deal that they have that many people standing in line dropping off. The service advisor did not compromise on one thing. She greeted everyone with a smile. She made sure that she took good notes about all of their concerns, and it wasn't all just tire related. And she took care of about 20 people in about 45 minutes. Some of them were basic things, but no compromise on the attitude, on the smile. Of course, the neat appearance, the professional appearance. The facility helps. That's part of the secret sauce. But in fact, it's not the newest facility that wins. The secret sauce is all about the person. It's all about the person connecting and gaining the customer's trust 100%. And of course, then the referrals flow, then the repeat business flows, because you're the kind of person that the customer can trust 100%. But hey, it's so much about attitude. So what do we do to ensure that our team is in top mental shape every morning and throughout the day, with customer number 15 as much as number 1?
It's accountability. And that's another area that's lacking, because service managers, some of them lack of training themselves, or whatever their reasoning may be. But if they're not holding their teams accountable, I mean, for me, there's nothing more important than roaming the service drive, roaming the customer lounge, roaming the shop throughout the day. Not just first thing in the morning, but first thing in the morning, late morning, lunchtime, early afternoon, late afternoon. The reality is emails, phone messages, numbers, that can be taken care of before you open, at closing time, at lunchtime, at your lunchtime. There's different times of the day to take care of a service manager's personal stuff. But for me, I don't think there's anything more important than to know exactly what's going on around your shop. It's not babysitting. It's really just support. You need to be supporting your advisors, your service porters, your technicians, your cashiers, if you have cashiers, whatever it might be. Anybody that's involved in the customer experience, you need to be supporting them. And the only way you can do that is out of your office.
Right. It's connecting. It's understanding what they're going through and being there to coach them through a challenge, right? It's being there to advise them on what the best practice is or what the best approach is. You know, Jeff's comment here is spot on, and that's why his stores are successful, because they have a mentality of bringing the right people into their culture, teaching those people how to act, you know, in respect to their values and how to approach their clients in relationship to their purpose. And that, to his point, right there at the very end, the culture starts day one. It is all about the human capital, because without the right human capital, without the right investment in that human capital, the rest is you're just going to be riding a stationary bike, pedaling extremely fast, counting the money as the cycle of the world happens, right? You know, as business was skyrocketing 2 years ago and everyone was counting how many record months they had, and then things slowed, right? The economy and everything slowed with it. The stores like Jeff's that did really well during those times, they understood the value of that capital through good and bad times. There's no adage, right? Good times are formed in bad times. Good habits are formed in bad times, and bad habits are formed in good times, right? And when you get those really good habits down, everything else becomes a cycle of just process, and you're not pedaling really fast going nowhere.
And now talk about having your hand on the pulse, okay? It's important to Robert Allen Carvel. Great service departments have great success when they present their processes to the customers 100% of the time, okay? I'm a stickler for process. There are things that we need to do. If you regularly read customer reviews, what you'll find a lot of times is there are complaints about service, and a lot of times those complaints are about customers being informed as to what's going on with their car. That's a huge problem. So in communicating with your teams, okay, my buddy John Fraser, our good friend John Fraser, he is active in a group thread at all times. He is active in communications with customers when they text in and out in the platform. So he can see that at the exact moment that maybe he needs to get involved. And this is not micromanaging. This is the opposite of micromanaging. This
support.
is caring to a level that as the minute he sees that there's a potential problem, he gets involved immediately. Okay. And a good way to keep up with your customers, I was in a store at certain times of the day, there's a chime that goes off. You know what that chime is for, gentlemen? That chime is to remind all of the advisors, check your work in progress, update your customers, so that it happens systematically. It's almost like Pavlov's dog.
I've got an acronym for how to maintain culture. On the practical side, you have to give your team time. And time in this acronym stands for totally interested management engagement. If you want engaged employees, you've got to have interested and engaged managers. So if a manager uses the word valued employee and they're not engaged on a daily basis with the team, with the staff, corporately and individually, you're going to be losing employees. You're going to be losing morale because the employee might say, hey, I only see you in the walkway on the way to the bathroom and the hallway. We don't ever talk. I've got some issues. And say, yeah, I'll talk to you. I'll get to you. And you never get to them. And we use the word valued employees. Well, let's feed them, right? I don't have time to talk to them, but I'll feed them. Well, of course, the proverbial pizza. I mean, there's nothing wrong with pizza. You know, pizza has become kind of a poster child for bad management, bad leadership, because the manager didn't give the employee their time, their total interest, and being engaged in the well-being and the success of that team member. So you can bring in all the pizza or steaks occasionally, as long as we give them our time. And that's when people will stay with you for the long haul, because they know they can talk to you. They've got somebody that cares. And next thing you know, you've got synergy when everybody's firing on all cylinders and numbers just show up. Those awesome numbers that you didn't create by doctoring up ELR or by spiffing one service to the detriment of the customer experience.
Yeah, the one thing that most say they don't have is time, right? In your acronym, they don't have the time to develop a person. They would rather, if that person isn't performing, it's let me get Mike out of here. Let me get Bob out of here and get Jim in next, because I don't have time to develop that person. That person should know what they're doing. I hired them because they knew what they were doing and they should be doing it. Well, that's not what leadership and development of people is, right? To your point, if you are engaged, it means we have great conversations. We reward the behaviors that we expect, but we also engage the person when things aren't going as well. Performance management shouldn't be, hey, Robert, you're not doing a good job. Look at your ELR. Look at your hours per repair order. Oh, and by the way, look at your dollars per RO. You're nowhere near Mike and Paul, so it's time for you to go. That's not development. That's not that time, right? How about having a great performance discussion and find out what the challenges are?
And you know what, Joe? How many dealerships? And early on in my career, I was guilty of this, as many of us have been. How many service managers allow, for lack of a better word, bad service advisors that have high numbers stay on board, even though they're not doing what they should be doing with each and every.
I've never been guilty of that, Mike. Never.
I mean,
no, it's true.
How do we expect to allow that to go on and get cooperation from everybody as a team?
When you have that siloed approach that you just talked about, right, which is, it's okay, I will tolerate poor behavior in lieu of money. It just tells the rest of the team where your priority is.
Exactly.
Your priority is only on money, right? There's a great professor, Dr. David Logan. He's a professor out of USC, and he talks about those 3 stages. And where the automotive mostly finds itself in is where people see themselves as highly competent and superior, and it creates this little silo effect. Like, I'm a really good advisor because I generate more money than Robert, but Robert does it ethically, and I may not do it as ethically as Robert. So it creates this little silo. And that service manager, in this case, we'll use Paul, that Paul sees me as the guy he wants to keep around when Robert's doing everything right? What I'm doing is just cherry picking. I'm taking the most, I'm pushing the rest off and trying to make as much money as I can because my only focus is the culture, and the culture is evident.
Yep.
There's a great book by a gentleman by the name of Steve DiFilippo. Steve DiFilippo is the owner of Davio's Northern Italian Steakhouse houses. He's got probably 11 or 12 around the country. I've been to 8 of them, to a lot of grand opening parties. Okay, Steve started years ago with one restaurant that had a lot of issues. Okay, the restaurant was on a cash only. They had no credit. And when Steve came in, he fired the maitre d' and the executive chef when he came in. Why? Because as you guys say, that advisor that, I make all the money, that's the cancer. Okay. His family thought he was nuts. His friend thought he was nuts. But guess what? He put in the work. He established a culture where all of the people care. They compete with the other stores. All right. Steve told me that, hey, I don't have to fire anybody because these people understand what our culture is, what we expect. And when they no longer fit what our mission is, they choose to leave on their own. And there are not a lot of people that leave there. Okay. If you can get that book, it's a few years old. It's all about the guest. It's in the restaurant business, but guess what? It's no different than automotive business. To
your point, competition is good. It's healthy to be competitive. Yeah. The 4 of us by nature are competitive people, but there's healthy competitiveness and unhealthy competitiveness. When winning all that matters, meaning when winning
at all costs
at the result or the behest of the customer isn't always beneficial long term, right? So I may win once in a while at a huge level, and if that's my only focus, I'm causing the 3 of you to choose another alternative option. And if we know there's so many incredibly intelligent, transformational leaders out there in the automotive world, unfortunately, they don't have as big of a voice as they need in that culture, because that's what's creating this departure of clients. If we got a wider voice, we got a wider breadth, those people that are talented, knowledgeable, experiences, guys like Jeff, they will create that culture where people keep coming back. That's the place you want to go to.
Jamie Alexander, a team of participators will always grow stronger than a few high performance. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, high performers, right, put in discretionary effort. They if the 3 of us or 4 of us are working towards a common goal, we'll put in discretionary effort, and we will be high performers and competitive in a healthy and supportive way to the purpose. I can't stress enough, like Mike started this meeting out, it comes down to people, right? The human capital. How are we investing and developing that capital? We'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in marketing, and it's great. But if we draw everyone to our business and we can't take care of them, how healthy is that spend in marketing? How healthy is it?
We talked about, lots of technology out there. All the technology in the world cannot fix a people problem.
Yeah,
agreed.
Bottom line. And same thing, we kind of danced around all the perks that we've over the last 20 or 30 years. You know, we put in, you know, car washes, we put in Starbucks coffee, you know, the shuttle services expanded. Now we're doing pickup and delivery. We're doing mobile service. All that stuff is excellent and it has lots of value, but only if you're doing everything else really, really well and really, really consistently.
Consistency.
And it'll have some value. Otherwise, you're just spending a lot of money and you're spinning your wheels.
If the people suck, the customer is going to have a horrible experience.
Right.
But if the people suck, then it's the person that brought on the person, the individual that is responsible. If I'm not as good as the three of you on the service drive, then it's incumbent upon the leader to develop me so that I can be as good as the three of you, so that I can develop my skills to create an environment that is conducive to culture. Right? We always go back to purpose. If our only purpose is money, it's no wonder clients are defecting. It's no wonder team members are defecting. I haven't seen the latest results from NADA, but I suspect the turnover in the past 2 years has gone even higher than it was 5 years ago. I would suspect, and maybe you guys know this data, but the turnover has got to be in the 100+ range. Maybe I'm incorrect in assuming that.
And there, you know, when you talk about pricing, just quick story, kind of related to this, maybe not, but I like to look at dealers around my area where I know what's going on at the stores to see what they're advertising, what they're doing. This store on their website on specials had a minor service, which is oil change, tire rotation, multi-point inspection, check the battery, check fluid levels. $189.95. Okay, I found that to be pretty high. On the same page, when you scroll down, they had just an oil change by itself for $89.95. So if a customer takes the time to put that together, I'm charging them $100 to do a tire rotation, a multi-point inspection, check the battery, and check the fluid levels. Again, we talk about customers' perception on price. Some of it, a lot of it is valid. Yes, some of it is not valid. We've all found that out when we do price shops and mystery shops where we actually compete very, very well with the aftermarket shops. But there are plenty out there that are still just, I don't know how they're coming up with these prices, but they're really not taking the time to think this through well enough, especially when it's on your own website on the same page.
Well, they're lucky they even had something because there are a lot of stores that don't have anything. You know, a good practice is to have videos on your website that talk about specific services that you do and what the importance of doing them are.
Right.
Well, how many people come in? They've been conditioned to believe all a car ever needs is an oil change, but nothing could be further from the truth. You know, there are inspections that need to be done. There are wheel balances that need to be done. There's so many things that need to be done on a regular basis. Okay, I've had cars, some of them 250,000 miles. When I didn't total them, that was, and every 5,000 miles, whatever the book said, do. I had my Lexus at 120,000 miles. The tech comes, he says, the plugs are like brand new. I said, I don't care. I'm on the road. The book says change them. I want to change them because I'm not going to get stuck. And guess what? Nothing went wrong with that car. I had the DVD drive on the nav system go at like 240,000 miles, something like that, which I ended up fixing myself with a YouTube video. But I did all the other maintenance. I understood the importance of it. And when I wrote service, for a Mercedes Saab store years ago, long before the MPI was even in existence, I had an Excel spreadsheet that was model specific because I quickly figured out that a 300 SD, they all broke in certain areas. A 560 SL, all of those broke in other areas. So I was a geek on Excel. I put the model And all of the things that went wrong, and I had the 3 little squares with it's good, it needs replacement, or advise the customer what the condition is. I explained to the customer what we're doing. They loved it. I explained to the mechanics why we're doing it. They loved it. Our road values went up. They actually embraced it. So it's all in how you present it. Everything comes down to communication, right? There's an old Italian saying, the fish stinks from the head. If your people don't believe in the MPI process, then it's time to look in the mirror, ask yourself, what have you done to establish the value for that employee? Because if the employee understands the value, then they'll be proud to do it. They'll understand why it needs to be done and why everybody, starting with the customer first, benefits. And when they win, we win, right?
And you used one of my key words. You know, I always talk about trust, value, and convenience.
Yeah.
And to what Robert talked about a while ago, if we're not taking the time to build relationships with our customers, how do we know which one of those words are important to them and why? Because convenience means different things to different people. Value means different things to different people. I think trust is a very broad word that we all want to trust whoever we're dealing with. But if we're not taking the time to learn what's important with our customers, how can we possibly serve them the right way and give them a great customer experience?
Hey guys, circling back to how important the human element is, the service advisor. Recently, a local Honda dealer celebrated 20-year anniversary of a service advisor. And in the same thread, they posted it on Facebook. It's a Honda dealer that I've done business with. And of course, I celebrated with them. I'm excited. And in the same thread, a customer said, and it is because of you that we still drive back to Charleston, South Carolina from North Carolina. So they stop. They don't service their vehicle in North Carolina. They continue coming back to the Honda dealer because of the individual. So the individual has such a power. So if you can build a team of people who have people power, who can connect with the customer. And a lot of times connecting is not about all kinds of weird stories or rapport and chatting for hours with a person. In fact, that's counterproductive, right? If you got somebody, well, but I'm building a relationship. You've been building that relationship for 2 hours. That's a little too long. but when you connect and you make this decision early in the morning, of course, you have to coach your team on this, that today, each customer that I meet, I'm going to make their day some way. And of course, in the service drive, on a practical side, hey, if they say something like, man, this traffic is terrible, agree with them. The weather is crazy. Sure enough, it's been raining a lot. Wow, thank you for weathering the storm. You say things that connect you to the customer. Or if you see something that really can connect you, that let's say you have the same team, same football team, right? I don't know anything about football. I'm not a football fan, but hey, you can connect on football, soccer, whatever it is, right? And next thing you know, you're basically part of the same family. But service advisors have got to learn about this, not to dwell on these things because you have a lot to do and you have to focus on taking care of the customer's issue, taking care of their transportation needs, getting them to work and keeping them informed. However, the human element is so important. Over and over, people will say, we go back there because how Maya Angelou said that people will not remember what you said or did. They will remember how you made them feel. So if we feel great when we do business with a certain service facility, we're going to go back there over and over. If we feel like they've taken us to the cleaners, and I own a dry cleaner, by the way, and we don't take anyone to the cleaners, they come voluntarily. But then you have trust, you have that feeling that I want to go back over and over again because I feel like they cared for me. They were professional, competent. They really, really, I felt like I was important to them and they were pleased to see me, that my presence was important to them.
58% of customers will spend more money and drive further for the experience.
How just an impromptu survey. There's 4 of us. How many of you would drive further for that kind of experience?
I do already.
That's 100% right here. I mean, it's a perfect example.
I drive 2 hours each way to Arthur Avenue in the Bronx from my house and back because I have an exquisite dining experience on Arthur Avenue. I don't mind doing it. It's a 6 to 7 hour commitment in time to have dinner on Arthur Avenue for me, but I gladly do it. And there are plenty of restaurants in the area, but there's something about the experience when I go there. And your customers at the dealership are really no different. I used to drive an hour plus to go buy cars, to service cars. I'd hang out there. I'd create content while I was there.
We're all customers of the automotive dealerships. Every one of us on this call are customers of automotive dealerships. So we support, we're passionate about that. And that's 100% of us would say, hey, we'll drive further for the right experience. So
let me tell you something about experience. Okay, there are dealers that get it. All right, I'm going to do a shameless plug for my dealer, Bob Alvine at Premier Subaru in Branford, Connecticut. This guy gets it. His whole team gets it. They take care of me like nobody's business. Okay, I had an issue. They fought hard for me, and they got me some great resolve. I will always be indebted to them, and I will always go to them because they care. They do things that most other dealers don't even care. My buddy called me up. He was looking for a Corvette. Okay, he says, "Can you help me?" Yeah, I think I might be able to. I got a couple of years in this. I'm still getting emails from dealerships now asking me, what's my phone number and what am I looking for? And now some of them have moved me onto the spam list. So I'm getting emails about Chevy truck specials. I inquired about a Corvette Stingray convertible. My buddy took delivery less than 24 hours after I did the initial reach out. But yet 2 weeks plus later, they're still reaching out. You know, how can we help you?
Well, and what Greg Dudley just said, that he doubled his commute for culture. I would say I went to work at 2 different Toyota stores, and my round trip commute, besides putting in 10 to 12 hours a day, was 3 hours round trip. And I had service advisors and technicians follow me to those dealerships. So if you create the right culture, now for me, the dealer principal and the general manager created the culture for me that I loved. I put aside the commute because of working with them. Same thing with my technicians and advisors. They put aside the commute because they got an opportunity to continue working with me. So there's no question, Greg, that culture is a huge deal, and we're the ones in control. So if you're not making it happen, why not?
Fish things from the head. Remember,
speed of the leader is the speed of the team.
And talking about the leader, Jamie Alexander said that when people become combative to a process, to a situation, it's because they want to do well and they are crying out for help to get back on track. From a retention standpoint, we cannot afford to have a combative person in the service drive, whether justified or unjustified, the combativeness or the attitude change. So a good leader will address that. And if it's justified, then of course you provide the support, the training, and help them get back on track. If it's unjustified, you have to address that too. But again, can we afford to have even one client, one guest come into our service drives and not be greeted warmly, not be greeted with a smile, with professionalism, with care, and then offered complete care every single time? Like I think Robert Allen Carvel said, 100% of the needs presented 100% of the time. We cannot afford to miss one. Each customer is extremely powerful, extremely important, because they can affect thousands with their voice on the internet nowadays.
Yeah. And I think you made the point earlier about, really caring about the customer. They sense that, and really caring about the employee and knowing, and supporting them. All right. I consulted with a dealership. I was told this particular individual was a problem. They were about to get rid of him. Well, you know what? After spending the day there, I found out that it wasn't the employee that was a problem. It was the service manager that was a problem. I learned more about that employee in one afternoon than the employee that had been working for the store for a couple of years than the service manager knew about that employee. Okay. When I went to Ed Roberts' book signing, all right, Ed Roberts, our friend, I went to the book signing. I met everybody at the dealership. But before I met everybody at the dealership, Ed told me their story. And when we went to that person, said, "Hey, Carlos, this is my friend Paul. Tell him your story." And almost verbatim. And I met a lot of people that day, or those couple of days. He knew everybody's story, and he was proud to tell the story, and they were proud to tell the story. And Ed looked at me and said, "You know what? I had a problem with turnover last year." I said, "Really? How so?" He said, "Yeah, I think I had like 0.5%. 0.5%. People would kill for that."
Ed walks very slowly. I visited his shop, and he walks very slowly, not because he doesn't know how to walk fast. I've seen him walk very fast also, but he stops with every guy and spends that 3 to 4 or 5 minutes, which the average service manager or average manager in any industry feels like is a waste of their time. They're an emotional drain. But great leaders will stop and give their team members their time. They're totally interested manager engagement, that acronym that I made up. You got to be interested. It's genuine. I mean, it really is genuine.
Yeah.
And Ed's definitely an inspirational guy on that. Obviously, he wrote the book on it too. But I mean, such an inspiration to see how slowly he walks and how fast he stops, and he'll take the time to ask him about, "Hey, how was your weekend? How was the concert you told me you're going to?" Specifics, not some kind of vague thing. To say, "How was the concert?" And the guy says, "What concert you talking about? I went to a funeral." No, he actually remembers. He makes it a point to remember what he talked to the person about, so that Monday he can actually refer back to that and show the person that he really cares.
And we don't all have to have a terrific memory, because not everybody does. But you can certainly make a note, right? You have a contact in your phone. You can update important things about your employees in that contact. It's not rocket science that we're doing here. The time has come and gone. And before we go, final thoughts, gentlemen.
Hey, I gotta say, you gotta discover the secret sauce. And the secret sauce is simply, you've got to connect with your staff, and the staff service advisors. We got to connect with customers and then offer complete care. No shortcuts, complete care every time, baby.
Fix your employee issue and you'll fix your customer issue.
Focus on human capital. Human capital provides a greater return.
And when something doesn't work out, don't look at your employee and try to figure out what's wrong with them. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, did you do everything you could to support them? And how can I support them better? So I want to thank you guys for being on the show tonight. I want to thank the folks that watch it live and the ones that watch it on the replay. I hope you have a safe and successful next week. And we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live. Thanks for watching.